All right. Um, so thank you, Francesca. I'm Kevin Hocker. I'm the city urban forester for the city of Sacramento. Hold on. There, I guess I got to agree to being recorded on there. Um, I'm going to talk a little bit about what the city does with their trees and what we can do for you. I'm going to only speak very briefly and then hopefully take some questions from anybody who's interested in knowing more or has any questions. Can be able to help you guys out with whatever you're wanting to know about. So brief background, the city of Sacramento, the city manages over 100,000 trees spread out over 100 square miles. To give you an idea how big of a number that is, if I spent 5 minutes on each tree, 4.5 years before I got to them all with no bathroom breaks. So that's a lot of trees there. We now have over 5 arborists that are all certified arborists that are tree risk assessment qualified. That's never happened in the history of Sacramento. We used to only have 1 or 2. Now we have 5, and they're all tree risk assessment certified. So we have experts that are working on this with us. We just redid our ordinance in 2016. So some of you, that's old news. Some of you that you may not have known that. We're not going to go over all the changes in the ordinance. We're not going to go over everything, but what I just wanted to let you know is the type of services that we offer. And to make it real simple, what the city asks of the resident in terms of the street trees is simply to water them and to rake up the leaves. And then they call us and tell us if there's anything wrong with them. If you notice, we don't expect you to be the expert, but if you notice something that doesn't look right, you can call 311. You can also send an email to 311@cityofsacramento.org. And then there's an app for your phone. The app's not as good with trees because there isn't a category for trees. You have to go down to other and then type it in. But we're working on that. We're going to make that a little bit better as time goes on. So once you've, and that service is there 24 hours a day. An operator will decide how important it is. Obviously, if it's an emergency, we'll be there within an hour. Many of you guys know that to be true because I've been out in your neighborhood at 2 a.m. with some of you here. Been a while since I've personally been out there, but our staff still comes out there within an hour for emergencies. For regular stuff, we get there as quickly as we can and usually within a day or two. Then the services that we offer is everything else. Everything, you take care of the watering and the raking up the leaves and letting us know when there's a problem. We handle everything else from planting it to watering it for the first 5 years of its life, to inspecting it, to treating it for insects and pests, to pruning it, to finding out creative ways to preserve its life, and finally, when the time comes, to remove it and replace it again. Feel like that's pretty much it. I know I'm forgetting something. Francesca, was there something specific that you wanted to
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. It was just mainly that.
Okay.
I do know that one thing I have to say is you said they get watered the first 5 years of their life. And I know that's true for some of the trees. In fact, my neighbor's tree next door, it's been watered for years, but some of them, they get skipped. So I think if somebody sees what looks like a new planting, they might want to call 311 and say it's not getting watered. People can also 311@cityofsacramento.org. They can also email. So that's another way to do it. But I noticed a few of them that look like they are in their first 5 years,
Absolutely.
but they aren't getting water.
That's great. So, and you kind of covered it right there. If you see something that doesn't look right, you can report it to 311. That one would be not so much of an emergency, so an email would do just fine. Let me elaborate on that a little bit. We have 5 water trucks, and they can, each one of them, let's see, I haven't done the math on this one in a while, but what it comes down to is that we plant a, we had a goal of planting 1,000 trees a year, and that goal was somewhat arbitrary. Um, we did the math on it a while ago and realized that with those 5 water trucks and each one watering at maximum capacity, we can water about 500 trees a year. So in recent years, we focused on the sites that we plant. We try to plant in places that already have irrigation, places that we know they're going to be cared for so that they don't need as much help from us. That allows us to continue planting as many trees as possible while only watering, we can only water about 500. And you got to remember that that's 500, that's how many we can water a year. But if we plant 1,000 a year, that's 5,000 in 5 years, and we can only water 500 of those 5,000. So we've actually started planting a little bit less, focusing on quality over quantity. We're prioritizing the places that already have irrigation, and we're also making some educated guesses as to when they don't need water anymore, when they've been established. So some of those only get watered for about 3 years if we feel that they've established and are getting care at that point. One thing that it's a minor detail, but the watering of the plant, even from the very first day, is the responsibility of the homeowner or the business owner or the property owner. That irrigation service that we provide is a courtesy to, because we really want to see those trees established. The first 2 years of their life are really critical. There's sort of some milestones in a young tree's life, much like any child. Like if you get past getting born and you make it through your first 6 months, you're smooth sailing up to about the first 5 years. And once you've made it for your first 5 years, you can pretty much guarantee you're going to make it to adulthood. It's the same thing with trees. If we get it planted and established through its first 6 months, then there's about a window of about 2 years where big things will happen to it. And if we can care for it for those first 2 years, it kind of hits another plateau. And then if it gets through the first 5 years, we can pretty much guarantee it's going to make it to adulthood. So we really watch it like a hawk for the first, its infancy, until it's established, because we want it to succeed. So, so again, that's a courtesy that we do, but not a, we don't have an unlimited supply of water or people. There's one thing I do want to mention before I open it up to questions. And I guess I'm gonna have to learn how to use this chat feature down here. But let me just say one thing. I know that in your neighborhood, there's an issue right now of a tree being proposed for removal for a sidewalk repair. We're gonna have a separate meeting about that. We do have a process where everything is as transparent as possible, and we explain everything, and that system works because you're using it, and it's designed to do exactly what we are doing. Your community has found something that you want an explanation for, and you have an objection with, and it's we'll have a meeting to discuss that and go over that. But this is not that meeting. But if you want to discuss anything related to sidewalks in general, trees in general, we can do that
I
here.
got a question in the chat here.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Francesca, if you can read each question to me and then I'll answer them, because I'm not too good at reading.
The first question I got. Does watering the city trees have an impact on household water allowances, especially during drought, and homeowners' costs? Are there any conversations about providing homeowners a water credit to keep watering the city planted trees, especially the new one?
That's actually like 3 questions in one, but I'll try to hit it if I can. Tell me if I miss anything. Watering trees is exempt from tree water restrictions. So if you're hand watering, or if you're watering with a drip system, or if or just the fact that you're watering a tree as opposed to ornamental flowers or a lawn, I believe that that's exempt from all watering restrictions. It does cost money. We now have water meters, so people are being asked to pay for their water per gallon now. So yes, that does have an impact on, your wallet, I assume. As far as incentives, we've been talking about that for years, and that conversation is ongoing. It wasn't such a big conversation when water wasn't metered, and now that it has been in recent years, that conversation is becoming a much bigger conversation. And for those of you who don't know, we're in the process of doing an urban forest master plan. It's been kind of stalled because of COVID. One of the big things that we really want is we want public participation. And it's been really hard to find a way to do public participation when people are at home. I mean, we're doing it now, but that, as far as the master plan goes, that wasn't, it's not ideal. So anyway, we will pick that conversation up as part of the master plan, and we value all your input. And part of the discussion is how we can find an incentive, a way of helping people with the urban forest rather than any perceived penalties for helping. I mean, it's kind of implied in that question that it costs money or there's additional costs to maintain a tree.
So the next question kind of helps you with that. It says, how much water do the trees need? What is the best way to water? Because the most efficient way would, of course, as the Tree Foundation says, use less water.
Okay, so help me again if I miss any piece of this, because there's sort of a multi-part question here as well. So first of all, you should know that trees in general use less water than your turf. It sounds counterintuitive because grass is small, trees are big, but your grass is really well spread out, and the tree is in one spot. And your grass, you usually give it a little bit of water every day, whereas the tree, you give it a lot of water all at once. And I know it sounds counterintuitive, but we've done the math 1,000 times, and it always comes up that the tree uses less water. So hopefully that's encouragement. And if you prioritize your trees over your lawn, it's gonna help. I'm gonna take a side note here. A lot of people don't know this, but the state has kind of directed cities across the entire state to remove turf from medians in all cases, and prioritize trees and mulch-like plantings. So that's one way to save water. However, okay, now how to actually water the tree. How much water the tree needs is going to depend. I can't give you a one-size-fits-all answer because trees aren't all one size. How much water it needs depends on the size of the tree, the age of the tree, and the weather. It's going to need a little bit more when it's first getting established. Then once it's established, it's going to need a little bit less, and then obviously it's going to need it proportionally as it grows. It's going to need half as much water if you think about how much it would need in the summertime, that's going to be its maximum. And then it's going to need about half as much in the spring and the fall, and it's going to need almost nothing when it's actually raining, because nature's kind of taking care of that for you. I did send Francesca a link to our water conservation website, and it has a wonderful tool that tells you, you put in what kind of sprinklers you have, you put in what kind of plants you're irrigating, and it doesn't have one specifically for trees, but I believe it says plants and something else. It mixed planting or something like that. That's the box you would want to click on.
I'll have to add that to the handout because I wanted to let everybody know, because one of the other questions is, how do you water the tree? How much water does it need? And when Kevin and I discussed this and I created a handout, it's on ENA's website, and it does have all the stuff about the Tree Foundation, how they're saying how to water a mature tree, how to water a new tree. But this calculator that Kevin talks about, I have the handout to add that and then have it reposted. And then the other thing is, I don't know if Kevin can answer this question. It's how much does it cost to water a tree per year? I know that Stephanie at the Tree Foundation said she was checking into that, but she hasn't gotten back to me. So I am not sure she has a
Okay,
figure on that
so
either.
let me finish where I'm going with this. So yes, the calculator is going to tell you specifically how many gallons you're going to be using, and how many minutes to run your timer on your specific uh, irrigation system, or if you don't have a timer, how much to water it with your system. But the concept is really simple. And the concept is the same thing that our water conservation people are pushing, that the Tree Foundation is encouraging, that the state of California is encouraging. And basically, I'm going to, in simple terms, think of it like you want to water the way the rain waters the tree. What I mean is you give it a lot of water and then you back off and let it dry out. And then you give it some more water and then you let it back off and let it dry out. Even in the summertime, you should only water your tree once a week or maybe twice a week. The soil can hold the water for about 3 days really well. It's a good sponge. So we call it deep watering. Let the water get down deep and then back off and let it do its thing. And it seems counterintuitive again, because it seems like you're giving a lot of water to the tree all at once, and you are. But over the course of a month, you're giving it less water than you would your lawn. Okay, and so how much does it cost? You'd have to look at how much per gallon your water bill is, and then how much water you're giving your tree. So I couldn't give you a one size fits all answer of how much it costs to water a tree.
And the mature trees get watered less, right? More like once a month for a really big tree. And then you do the drip line.
Yeah, so the roots of the tree are, you can pretty much imagine that the roots of the tree are, okay, I got to back up. A lot of people think that the roots of the tree look like what they've seen in a drawing of a cartoon drawing of a tree, where it's a mirror image of the branches. That's not true. You want to think of it like a wine glass that's glued to a dinner plate. The roots are very shallow, but they're very wide. And obviously they stop where there's obstruction. So they're not going to penetrate through rock or the street or your house. But if it were an open area, the roots would be no more than about 3 feet down. And they would be as far out as the farthest branches. Now, the farthest branch in that circle that those farthest branches make, we call that the drip line. So that's where you can imagine the roots are, and you want to water that evenly, and you want to water it enough to soak it down to about 3 feet. Now, you're not going to know if you got down to 3 feet. Sometimes you can dig a small hole or use a screwdriver to just stab the ground and pull it back and just kind of see if it's wet down there. And that really gives you a good idea. But that's the area that you want to water. I feel like I missed a part on that, Francesca. What were you?
No, I think you
Yeah.
got it. Just how often
How often?
you
Yes.
water a
How
mature
often?
tree
So
versus a new
again,
baby.
it depends on your soil type and the slope and everything. But in general, the concept is that you want to think of the soil like a sponge. And when you wet that sponge, it's going to hold water for about 3 days. Now, that may not be your experience when you're watering your lawn, because you're only wetting the top of that sponge. You're only wetting the very surface, and the surface evaporates. And so that's why you water your lawn almost every day. But if you water that sponge down all the way down to the 3 feet depth, there's not as much evaporation, and it can hold that water for a good 3 days. Now, 3 days on a 7-day cycle kind of, it doesn't divide evenly. And that's also just a rough number. Sometimes it can be 4 days. Sometimes it can be, 2.5 days or something like that. So you really only need to water about once a week. Now, when you have fully mature trees, and depending on the species, and I'm very familiar with oaks, and I know you've got a lot of elms in your neighborhood, but what I'm telling you usually comes from our experience
We
with
have a
oak
lot of
trees.
oaks too
You have
now.
some
I
oaks too.
started
I do
walking
know
around
that.
after I had that oak talk from Tree Foundation last year, and then I started noticing all the oaks, and I was like, wow.
Yeah. Now, the reason I say oaks is because oaks are adapted in nature to hold water for a very long time. It's not about the soil. They have specific adaptations to hold the water. If you think about it, before long before irrigation systems were even invented, long before any person who ever knew about trees was walking on this land, oaks were surviving and thriving, and they weren't getting any more rainfall then than they were now. They have mechanisms to take all the rainfall that comes in the winter and store it up for a good long time. So with an oak tree, watering it once a month in the 3 hottest months of the summer is enough, is all it really takes. And you may find with some experimentation and just some trial and error that you can do the same with an elm tree and other trees that you're familiar with. You can just water a fully mature established tree once a month, especially in the 3 hottest months of the summer, and that you may find that that's perfectly adequate.
I'm going to
You may
have
find
to
that that's
put a bookmark in this because we have another presentation coming.
all right.
But we may have you back again if people have questions and you're willing to come. And Patricia put a link to the tree handout in the chat. And also I'm going to update it to the calculator that Kevin sent us. And I really want to thank you a lot for taking time out of your evening with your family to come and talk.
No problem. If you find, if any other questions come up in the chat or if they come up later, Francesca, why don't you just send me an email and I'll try to answer them to the best of my ability, and maybe we can get the information out that way. And I'd be more than happy to come back anytime. There's an infinite amount of questions, and I kind of work best by just answering the questions as they come up. I'm not really good at prepared presentations, but love to come back and help you out anytime. Enjoy.
All right. Thank you so much, Kevin.
Thank you.
Now, is Terrence Lee here and Daniel Lee?
Yes, I'm here.
There he is. Okay. Our next presentation is going to be done by the developers of the owners of the old Coca-Cola factory. It's on the corner of Stockton and 39th and Miller Way. On one side of Stockton, it's Miller Way. On the other side, it's 39th Street. And they are proposing to put a Marriott Element Hotel there. And their plans slightly changed, and it's been a couple of years since we met with them. So we thought it would be a good idea for them to talk to the neighbors. So thank you for coming, Terrence.
Of course. Is it possible, so I have some slides that I can share. If not, if I don't have the capability, it's fine. I can just talk it through, but.
Patricia, can he share the screen?
Yes, he should be able to. Can you see down there where it says share screen? And if not, let me just find you here.
And it's, if you're on an iPad, it's on the top. And if you're on a computer, it's usually on the bottom. But sometimes you have to hover your cursor or your finger, depending on if you're on a touch screen, just for that menu to pop up. And share content or share screens, usually a green button with an arrow.
And here, let me see. Oh, I just. Okay. And then I'm going to, let's see if this works. Does this work?
Oh, he's got it up.
Fine, well
Okay,
done.
good.
Okay. So I also have on this Zoom meeting, Michael Stanton and Lucinda Lawrence, who are our architects from Stanton Architects, and also Brian Holloway from Holloway Consultants. So thank you to, they're here to help me answer any questions if needed. Thanks for having us. So I'm just going to do a quick presentation and then save the rest of the time for Q&A. I know that some board members probably were present when I presented back in 2019, and I know that there are a lot of new people on the board also.
Yeah. And some of the board members didn't come.
Right.
Somebody's got it. Somebody's not muted. Okay.
Okay.
Somebody's got background noise coming on in their house. So I'm not sure about that. Okay. Sounds like we can hear.
Okay. So back in 2019, we were approved by the city for a 120 room hotel concept that that you can see that I'm sharing now. Most of the design since 2019 has actually remained the same. The focal point or the main features of the hotel is the adaptive reuse of the old original brick building, which you can see here. So the old part of the brick building will contain the administrative offices for the hotel, a bar lounge on the first floor, which you can see the large windows on the corner here. That's where the bar will be. And then there will be a gym and meeting spaces on the second floor. So this is the first floor plan, which includes a swimming pool in the courtyard. And then this is the second floor, so the fitness up here, and then we have a meeting space up here and some flex space for additional meeting spaces. So for back when in 2019, we had some design challenges with limited space on the lot. So we actually ended up approaching AT&T to purchase their unused lot at 4024 Miller Way, which is right here. The transaction was completed earlier this year, and it allowed us, it gave us some flexibility with our new building design. So this new lot is going to be used for parking, and now we're also going to be upping the room count from 120 to 151. Because originally, the original plan was to have parking on the site, ground level, and then everything would essentially be built above that. So now we're able to bring the pool down to the ground level, move parking off into this lot. So we have some space for 151 rooms and staying within the variance of the height limitations for the building. In terms of the parking lot, the plan is to have a 6 or 7 foot precast concrete wall around the perimeter of the lot. As you can see here, we have neighbors that we actually did a presentation for a little while back. And so this wall is going to help minimize both light and sound. So hopefully we won't be, a big disturbance to our neighbors. We also plan to have a 24-hour monitored security camera system, and that coverage will include the parking lot. There's going to be a secured gate, most likely right here, to gain entry to the parking lot. It's not going to be open to the public. It'll be, for guests only. And then we also have plans to use a private security patrol responder. If anything comes up, fingers crossed, we'll be okay. And as Francesca mentioned, our proposal was for an Element brand under the Marriott franchise, and we were actually approved recently for that by Marriott. So we'll be moving forward with the Element concept, which is a higher end extended stay hotel. So our focus will be on long-term customers, which we feel would be a really good fit for customers and nurses and doctors in visiting UC Davis Medical and the Shriners Hospital down the street. So moving forward, we are already engaged with the city to get approval from the planning department. We have a tentative hearing date of July 1st. And so if everything goes according to plan, we hope to start site work in spring of next year. And we have slated a 22-month construction schedule. And that's about it. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Well, I'm looking in the chat and I don't see any. If you have a question, you can raise your hand or unmute yourself if you know how to unmute yourself and just ask Terrence, because we don't have a lot of people asking questions. Oh, somebody asked, is there a chance that you can change the architecture? So that's one question. I can start reading to you from chat.
Okay. Change the architecture in terms of the new part of the building or the old part. But regardless, you know, this concept and the design has actually already been approved by the city. That's something that we had already engaged them with.
Terrence, it's
Yes.
Michael. Can I jump in for a second?
Please do.
The chat appears to be, can we change the architecture of the older building? And we've been fairly successful, we think, in working within the pieces that are in the older building. The windows are staying more or less the same. It's a venerable building that is viewed as being an historic resource in Sacramento. So we've treated it as an adaptive reuse of an historic structure. The balconies that you see on that corner are actually on the existing building, as is the canopy entrance, which we're using to incorporate as a secondary entrance to the hotel and access to the bar. And we think we've been fairly successful in coming up with good concepts that Terrence showed you in plan for how to make these spaces inside the older bottling plant successful for a modern new hotel. So our lobby, which you see in sort of that lavender color, is a combination of new construction on the left of it and the reuse of the existing old office portion of the historic resource of the former Coca-Cola plant. So we'll be demolishing all of the Coca-Cola plant west of the brick portions that you saw in the renderings and keeping the rest of it. We're certainly going to continue to work to make the best use possible of the inside of the old building, but we're limiting our changes to the exterior at the preference of the city and consistent with the historic resource that we're adaptively reusing.
You know, actually,
And I will say this went by Preservation Sacramento in the first round because it was a historic building. And Preservation Sacramento was okay with how it was being preserved. But anyway,
okay.
so Elizabeth, please.
Yes. So what I'm trying to ask is actually the issue is kind of matching this new design to the old design. So it seems like very disjointed between the two styles. It's just, it seems very disjointed, and there's not even the color of the outside of the facade doesn't match. So I'm just, you know, as a pleasing and neighborhood and making it very, you know, preserving everything about our neighborhood, that this aspect visually from Stockton and from Miller Way is going to be important. And I was just wondering if there was any consideration of making it more adaptable to the existing historic portion of the building.
Since the new portion of the building is sitting back behind the historic resource, it necessarily, and since it's 5 stories facing Stockton Boulevard and 4 facing the residential neighborhood Miller to the north, it's necessarily going to be a somewhat different feeling building. We've tried to articulate the pieces of the new hotel in a way that will make it a more pleasing and different looking building than you might see otherwise in a standard modern hotel. And the design team, Lucinda Lawrence and the rest of the people in my office, have paid particular attention to energy conservation because obviously Sacramento has a hot climate and we don't want to unduly burn energy. That's why the fenestration you see in the rendering that was just up on the screen facing Stockton Boulevard and facing to the south to the AT&T building is smaller punch windows in a wall, punch windows being a pattern established in the Coca-Cola building. And then where we're on the north facade, that you can see on the right here, and you can see it here, is an opportunity for a good deal more glazing into the hotel rooms because you're on a north facade where we don't have a heat gain situation. We didn't make, I will confess, a conscious effort to make a new 5-story building look like a 1-story, 2-story brick building, but we did try and match color, texture, and materials in a way that we thought worked well. We're going to continue to work on it and come up with the best design we possibly can.
And I've got some more questions from chat now, and these are more about the traffic and the parking. They wanted to know where is access to parking, off what street, and they wanted to know, and what somebody had a tech issue and missed whatever you had said about parking, and somebody was talking about traffic mitigation plan. Which direction will the traffic flow to? So those are all traffic ingress and egress questions and just about the parking and the traffic.
Sure. So there is a entrance here on Miller Way, which is a both ingress and egress. And then also one on Stockton Boulevard, but this will only be a right turn out, since it'll be not a good situation for people making a left out onto Stockton. Additionally, there will be, so currently this intersection at Miller and Stockton has 3 pedestrian walkways across the street, and we'll be installing a 4th one on this side here to increase the connectivity over to UC Davis Medical. In terms of the information for the parking, there's going to be a 6 to 7 foot precast concrete wall that's going to help to mitigate sound and light to the adjoining neighbors' properties. We are planting a lot of new trees, which we've been working on the city with quite diligently. And there will be 24-hour camera security, which will cover both, the main property and the parking lot. And then we'll also have a 24-hour patrol responder.
On the other question, I guess, because I think your architect was talking about environmentalists, somebody asked if solar panels were going to be used as any part of the planning design.
That is not currently part of the plan. We do have multiple EV stations planned for the site.
Did you say multiple?
Yes.
I didn't get that. You said multiple.
EV.
Electric vehicles. Pardon me, Terrence.
Ah, got you. Okay. Yeah. Online, internet, sorry. So does anybody else have any more questions before we go on to the rest of the meeting? Now we have these guys here. Oh, this is one more question. Will the north-facing windows reflect blinding sunlight during the late spring and summer onto the homes on Miller Way? So I can read that again. Will the north-facing windows reflect blinding sunlight during the late spring and summer onto the homes on Miller Way?
Well, that's a very fair question for the neighborhood and the community to ask. And we will make certain that that is not the case. It's not in any case going to be a reflective glass. It will be a standard vision glass, so it's not a mirrored glass building. And we'll make sure that there is sufficient fixed vertical sunlight restrictors so that that's not a problem.
Somebody's asking the solar question again. I already asked if the solar panels were going to be installed, and you said it wasn't part of the plan. And the same person is saying, will the building be able to accommodate solar? The roof looks like it could. In other words, even if you're not installing it, could it accommodate it?
That is, I believe, a California building code requirement that most new construction, commercial construction, be designed to accommodate solar collectors in the future. And I don't see any reason why this roof can't. The roofs are relatively clean. They simply have the exhaust fans from the bathrooms that will be ganged together and come up through the roof. Otherwise, the roof is a flat roof. And so there shouldn't be any reason why it shouldn't be laid out and designed in such a way that it can accommodate solar panels in the future.
Somebody asked if we could post your slides on our website. Now, I'm not the webmaster, but are these on the internet anywhere, or can you share them with us and then maybe I can share them with neighbors?
Share them.
Or we could link to them if you have them somewhere. We could provide a link.
They're actually not posted anywhere, so I can send these directly to you, Francesca, but I just have to let everybody know. Maybe you could post that, these are not final designs, it's
Oh, that's true. You're still working with the city and the neighbors
Yeah.
from the other neighborhoods as well, like Miller Way neighbors.
correct. But yeah, I think, overall, this is the design that, we're most likely going with. There'll be, probably minor changes as we go along. But, I don't want to give people the necessarily the wrong impression that this is, the final design.
The last idea I was handed just to throw to you as an idea is, besides solar, there could be gardens on the roof.
That is a good idea. We did toy around with the idea of having some sort of amenity on the roof. I'm not sure if that's if we're gonna be able to do that or not, but it's something that we can certainly discuss and look into. And I think it would be a really neat feature as well.
Yeah.
Terrence, I have a
All
quick
right.
question for you, if I may ask a question, a clarification question.
Yes.
On the aerial view from the north side, on the back side, are those residential homes that are part of the hotel, or is that a neighborhood? Is that part of the neighborhood?
This complex right here?
Right.
Yeah, those are apartment buildings. And we've actually reached out to the owners and have been in contact with them, and they are in support of the project.
Okay.
The
Yes,
other thing that
Because
you
I-
would notice,
those are being
that-
rented out.
excuse me, Terrence, the other thing that might be a little confusing in this particular view is the gray mass, which is beyond the hotel. That is actually the existing blank walls of the AT&T building. So the hotel is the U-shaped building that steps down to Miller Way and steps down to Stockton Boulevard that you see in the front. And that building beyond that Terrence just highlighted is the AT&T building beyond our main vehicular arrival, which will be off of Stockton Boulevard.
And so with your pointer, would you mind pointing where you will be placing that sound wall?
So that is actually not shown in the picture here, but so yeah, it'll be along this property line here.
And what was again the height of that wall?
It'll be 6 or 7 feet.
And what is the product that it's being made of?
It's precast concrete, so it's something like this. So it'll be concrete, but it'll have some sort of design feature. We haven't decided on that yet.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Francesca, I have a question. This is Deborah. I tried to post it, but for some reason I can't. Can you hear me?
Yes.
You're
Okay,
fine, Deborah.
Great. I was curious if the project includes any kind of streetwise enhancements for the Elmhurst or the other neighborhood. I believe it's the Med Center neighborhood, such as any public art or pedestrian lighting to help pedestrian traffic as opposed to maybe some visitors getting in their cars and driving.
And you're talking about having this in the different neighborhoods?
No, well, there's Elmhurst, which is to the north, but the other neighborhoods, I think that's Tahoe Park or the Med Center, like down Miller Way, Sherman Way, that kind of.
Yeah, it's kind of North Oak Park these days, I think they
Yeah.
call it, but it's either Med Center neighborhood or North Oak Park, yeah.
Just asking for any public improvements you're doing. Public art is a budget in many development projects, as well as, with the older neighborhood. We struggle sometimes with the uneven sidewalks and pedestrian lighting to help pedestrian traffic.
Mhm. The only public improvements that we are currently slated for, as I mentioned, is the crosswalk across Stockton Boulevard. And then we are also going to build a new bus stop out front of our building. In terms of lighting for pedestrians, we haven't discussed that with the city, but I know that in our discussions with them, the lighting on our building has been an issue that we've worked hard with the city with to make sure that it's not disturbing, neighbors. There's no glare going into any of their homes. So that, so we'll have lighting kind of, around our property itself, but not necessarily public.
Any illuminated signage associated with the hotel?
Yes, we will have a sign, but it actually has not been finalized exactly. So we have it right here for this purpose, but we might, it might be moved. We're actually in talks with the designers from Marriott who's also have a say in kind of the layout of the building and how it'll look. So this might get switched over to this side of the building because this is where the lobby will be located. But in terms of illumination and things like that, that's something that we'll work with the city on. I know that if it's too bright and it could be an issue with neighbors. So
Right.
something that we'll be wary of.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So my last question that I have in chat is, what will be the capacity of the bar and lounge, and what hours is it going to be open till at night?
So capacity, I think that's going to come down to kind of what the city allows when it comes to getting a permit. That's something that we'll have to discuss down the road. In terms of hours, that again, we haven't set any hours, but we're thinking that this will likely be a nice attraction more for happy hour type time of the day. And because we do have neighbors right across the street and, adjoining the parking lot, it's not going to be too late at night. Most likely maybe 10 p.m., 11 p.m. on weekends kind of thing. But yeah, that's something that has not been finalized at all and something that we'll discuss.
Okay, the next question I have here is from is about parking again. Access to parking is on Stockton. I think you said it was on Miller and you could only get out from Stockton, but maybe not. You can clarify that. It says access to parking is on Stockton. Right turn in and right turn out. Where do folks go who want to leave toward the freeway?
Yeah, so there's also an exit on Miller Way right here. And so you could go out on Miller.
And that, by the way, is an existing driveway, existing curb cut on Miller. That's part of the.
Summer.
Somebody have a question? Carrie, do you have a question? I see you up there. Oh no, you're muted. All right, any more questions or should we go on to the rest of the meeting? Patricia, you there?
I'm here. I think.
Good. I want to thank Terrence and Brian, and I didn't get the architect's name for
Michael Stanton.
Michael Stanton.
Yes.
Oh, great. Thank you
Thank
for
you. And,
joining
uh,
us tonight
Yeah, if there are
and
any
answering questions.
Yeah, if there are any questions moving forward, Francesca has my email, so feel free.
Yes,
to-
I do.
Yes. So I'd be happy.
So
know,
if you
any
send
other
them to the
questions,
ENA board, we will get them.
Okay, perfect. And I'll send out the slides when I get a chance as well.
Thanks
All
again,
right.
everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. So I think, Francesca, we're going to end the recording part of the program. correct?
Absolutely.
Oh, we need to get them to
Yep.
take off their slides. Oh, good. Okay, there we go.
Yeah, we're not going to record the rest of the meeting because it's going to be a neighborhood discussion and we figured better off not recorded so people can be candid